threads binding the fragile simulacra we define as reality were slowly but consistently coming undone. Gone were the gatherings, the warm hugs, being able to come and go from your own home without threat of imprisonment, being able to discern fact from fiction without concerted effort. I may have jumped the gun a bit when I dove headfirst into the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, only ever scratching the surface. I eventually grew out of it, realizing the world was crazy enough without them. Upon the incredibly destabilizing 2016 US presidential election. But it was only the beginning. Lately, my thoughts and spirits had been up. I'd been feeling and thinking and being more myself than I had been in years. Nearly a decade now that I think about it. As I write this, it is midnight, July the 1st, 2021. I had a terse reprieve from my demons in the fall of 2013 to spring 2014. I'd made friends, had girlfriends, and did crazy drugs, had crazy parties. Then, in 2014, I was kicked out of my dorm and fined for something my roommate had done. And then, my uncle died. I never really had a childhood. Memories of a broken home, incessant bullying and manipulation by narcissists etched its way into my psyche. It left deep scars, ones I didn't even feel the pain of until I was in my late teen years, until I needed my psyche and autonomy more than ever. Then, after Uncle Dave passed away, just when I needed him most, 2016 happened. And everything else, this conspiracy thing, consumed me. It was like all of reality and time, existence itself, had been entirely and utterly eviscerated, eliminated, erased, and replaced with a world of mere shadow, with a world a mere shadow of its predecessor for all of its outward appearance. It was the same world I was born into, but I knew, not only from my history researching conspiracies and the power structures encircling the globe, but also from my experience being manipulated, being bullied, being used. I knew now not to trust anyone. In 2019, I died. I had always had visions, seeing things that were impossible. Fractal dimensions and kaleidoscope beings. All a result of my mental illness and the cause of my hospitalizations, of course. Obviously, at the time that these occurred, stumbling upon a self-aware and self-replicating mathematical equation commonly known as golden ratio in 2012, and believed I was dead and in hell in 2017. I was fully convinced of their absolute reality. Clearly, delusions and ostensibly the mere tip of the proverbial iceberg. I didn't realize what was happening at first. This particular vision did not begin like the others. It started subtly, beginning at the peripheral of my vision. It got closer and closer, inching ever nearer the center of my view. As it did so, everything I looked away from left a copy of itself as my gaze crawled to the next visual destination. I began to realize something was wrong. Terribly, ineffably wrong. Not just wrong though, impossible. Everyone around me at the gathering inquired restlessly as to my condition, pleading with me to drink more water. But I refused. Something about it terrified me more than anything else. The fucking water. What was in it? What was in that goddamned water? Everyone around me became the same person, all pleading, "Drink. Drink the water. Drink the fucking water, Ian," it screamed. I ran. Police sirens and strobes began to creep in through the trees, which themselves blended with the structures and people person behind me. Everyone I knew had been erased and replaced by this hideous amalgamation. My head turned inside out, and a green plant man with bulging black bug eyes crawled out and began to pursue me in the other direction, urging me back into my body. After this, everything began to go blank. It was like the universe itself was beginning to turn off. Every time I came back, I was in a new place. The first time, I was in the passenger seat of a golf cart. The second, I was fused to a biomechanical roller coaster orbiting a supermassive black hole accompanied by what I could only describe as post-human. Plant beings similar to the one in my head, they were kind, gentle, caressing my pulsating green skin and feeding me stars. The third, I was dead. For 45 seconds, my heart had stopped. But every second was an entire universe unto itself, with its own history and civilization. Entire empires rose and fell. Planets, galaxies, and beyond, all consumed by a hive of machinery and organisms which themselves fused to become a hyper-dimensional pyramid with a face. God's face. God's face was eating itself. And then, the next morning, I woke up with a chip in my tooth, a hematoma in my left eye, and God knows what else permanent damage I did to myself. Briar had waited by the golf cart when I said I needed to go home. "You sure you want to go home?" he said. He'd asked me. According to him, I said his place was a way better idea. Neither of us had any idea I would need CPR, which Briar was trained in. You started yelling at people, entirely unlike yourself, and that's when I brought over the golf cart. But it wasn't over. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic struck the entire planet with a fury nobody was prepared for, but me. Pandemonium was already approaching by the summer of that year, with global food shortages hitting early next spring. Orwellian-style, authoritarian regimens rose from the chaos and terror, the world engaging in war with one another, and then the sky trumpets arrived. They'd already been heard around the world as early as 2019, but the speed, the quantity was nothing compared to the spring of 2021. Spheres of strange metallic solids showered of rotten meat and sideways blades, lightning akin to the Somerset anomaly, but occurring at least once a week at first, before accelerating to an almost daily occurrence. "Sounds like a bad trip," he'd said the next day. Although it may be hard to believe, harder still that this is a message from many months ahead of you. This paled in comparison to the horror that would unfold on the ground. The conspiracy theories, coronavirus, World War III, mere warnings. We didn't listen. And now, I'm beginning to think we're all dead. And we're in hell.